If you are a Christian or a bit accustomed to its teaching due to your cultural environment, you may as well know there is the remaining spiritual process after regeneration or forgiveness of sin by the cross, i.e. death of vicarious death of Jesus. That is not the end of the journey, of course, there are a long way to go, which is called sanctification, and at the ultimate end of the journey is glorification of saints. By the way, glorification of saints is so tightly related with advent of Jesus, and rapture etc. Would there be any similar teachings in Buddhism? By the way, Buddhism's teachings are too extensive to be narrowed into a unified doctrinal system. That's why we cannot see an equivalent of systematic theology of Christianity in Buddhism. Interestingly, some Buddhist masters and professors claim that on the contrary, that is the merit of Buddhism because Buddhism can subsume everything under its umbrella. I think that is the dark side of syncretism, though. If you force me to pick up just one Buddhist canon, I will not hesitate picking up the Avatamska Sutra, which is called the only complete canon in Buddhism, meaning all other canons or sutras are incomplete. Here is another interesting point. Why do we need all other canons or sutras if the Avatamska Sutra is the only perfect one? Here comes the famous skillful device theory in Buddhism. They say even though the Avatamska Sutra is perfect, its teaching is too high for common people to understand, so we need other incomplete but easy to understand canons. I think this is the watershed point where Buddhism became too syncretic belief system versus Christianity. Christian church fathers claimed sola fide and sola scriptura, and confined so-called orthodox canon as being the Bible comprised of 66 books. Relative to this, Buddhists did not pick up the Avatamska Sutra comprised of 39 books as the only one, but one of them. The Avatamska Sura is believed to have been written in Sanskrit, but now we cannot find the Sanskrit version, but Tang Dynasty era's Chinese translation. If you're interested in reading the Avatamska Sutra, you can refer to Thomas Cleary's English translation, the Flower Ornament Scripture. By the way, I'm very doubtful you would understand what the sutra is talking about. It is time-consuming work even for me capable of reading Tang Dynasty era's Chinese literature to read it in Chinese. As you know, translation into other language carries just 50% to 80% of original meaning. Anyway, the teaching of the Avatamska Sutra is quite different from Theravada Buddhism's teaching where nirvana is so important as a kind of painkiller. That is because Buddhism had developed so much to be called Mahayana Buddhism, where the goal of that religion have changed from just free from pain to attaining Buddhahood. The reason why the Avatamska Sutra is complete is that the canon depicts the full progress of sentient beings until they attain Buddhahood, but interestingly they reject the final stage of partaking of the status of Buddha because they are reminded of other still worldly-stricken pitiful sentient beings. Just before attaining Buddhahood, they choose to remain as bodhisattva with humanity to rescue other sentient beings. If I use the term of Christianity, it is like a saint reject being glorified just before the moment of rapture in order to save and rescue her relatives on the earth. Theravada Buddhism is sometimes disdained as Hinayana, meaning small vehicle versus Mahayana meaning great vehicle, in that the former just focuses on individual flee from pains than majority's benefit. Of course, Theravada Buddhists oppose the criticism they are selfish, but from the viewpoint of doctrine itself, it is acceptable that Mahayana presents more appealing cause. By the way, there is very heated controversy on whether salvation is instant or gradual. In Christianity, as soon as you are forgiven the sins and regenerated, you may be called being saved. That does not necessarily mean there is no further steps of sanctification. In that sense, Christianity's soteriology is gradualism. But, from the viewpoint of Calvinism, God predestined one to be saved before the creation of the world. That is an integral point of Calvinism's so-called tulip. Tulip is total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, and perseverance of saints. Among these, unconditional election is quite equivalent with instant salvation theory of Buddhism. In the Avatamska Sutra, it reads, the moment of your first having faith is just the great awakening of becoming Buddha. Based on this great verse in the canon, Buddhist scholars and masters argued with their own opinions. Anyway, most of scholars and masters agree that it is certain the first faith has the seed of full-grown Buddha, but it still needs time for the seed to grow until that final stage, meaning Buddhist believers need a long way of sanctification.